if you're gonna quit, rest instead, right? Like that's my suggestion. Like, don't quit, rest, you know.
If it doesn't make you money and it steals energy from you, you should stop doing that. The idea of me checking my email right now makes my skin crawl. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to do my calendar. I delegated all of that off to have somebody else manage it because they can take care of that task actually much better than I can, follow up much better than I can, so that I can do what it is that I do well.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I've got Jim Johnson from Contractor Coach Pro on. How you doing, sir?
I could not be any better. I love hanging out with you. I love having conversations with you, and it's gonna be a lot of fun today, I think.
Yeah, when we had an event at our office and you came and spoke, there was a guy there that said if I was any better, I'd be twins. And I've been saying that every once in a while now. It's too good. It's simply too good. And in that case, the dude was
actually
a little bit.
The way it goes is if I was any better, because when somebody asks me if I'm doing well, I'm like, if I was doing any better, there'd be two of me.
Yeah, I like that too. That's good. And we're talking about, hustling versus prospering and finding the right balance for you today with Jim. Jim, you got a new program, Prosperous Human. Can you just give us a little bit of it?
Yeah, I might call it a whole new passion. It's been my own personal passion for a while.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that had a pretty rough situation 20 plus years ago now. I had a bookkeeper steal a bunch of money from me. If anybody follows me, they kind of know the story. So I'll keep it short. But a bookkeeper, like I said, stole $585,000 from a business.
Couple bucks.
And my one of my best friends that I looked at as like a little brother decided to go into business with her to start a competing company, even though I could prove to him on paper that she stole the money. Like we could prove it. And I was super pissed. I blamed her for doing what she did. I blamed him for choosing to take that route. And in reality, I blamed everybody but me. And kind of had this epiphany moment that why would he choose to do that? Why would he choose to go to be in business with a thief instead of continuing to work with me? And it was like a brick hit me in the forehead, a lightning bolt, whatever you want to call it. I'm worse than a thief. What's worse than me? What's worse than being a thief in me? And everything was about what I could gain from everything else instead of what I could give. And I had a little bit of a come to Jesus moment on my front steps about that. And I in the process of going through all that, I just asked God, like, hey, God, what do I need to do? And there wasn't like the voice of God going, hey, Jim, go do that. It's not like that, at least in my experience. What it was like this overwhelming need to start serving instead of being selfish. And that very day I started, and I've never gone back. It was kind of my first wake up moment to what leadership really looked like versus what I thought it looked like. I thought leadership was getting all the accolades and recognition, being successful, having the sports cars and trucks and big house so that whenever somebody saw you, they thought that's success. I want to be like that. And truthfully, what I was doing is putting myself on a pedestal that I wanted everybody to look at me and say, I want to be like that guy. And the reality is nobody should have been like me at all. I didn't treat humans as humans. I treated them as human resources. They were a resource to be used, and when they were done, on to the next one. So I would say it was all about me and not about everybody else. And when I woke up to that, it kind of put me on a journey because that was a little bit of a spiritual growth and development there. I became closer to God at that point, and my faith grew on a daily basis, but I still felt like things were missing that I couldn't put my finger on. And as I went on to research some of these things, because I think we all get lied to be honest. I think we get lied to of what prosperity is. I think the world tells us it's a noun. It's a thing to be gained or taken. this prosperity. So in the things that you have and the stuff that you do and where you go and this persona that we try to put out that we've been successful or prosperous is a noun. It's a thing where really the root word is prosper, and it's an action. It's not an outcome. It's a way of living, which kind of woke me up to now go start researching what being a prosperous human was all about. And so this became a passion for me in my own life that I didn't really tell anybody else about. I just I felt like things were missing I couldn't put my finger on. And so I went in search of them. And that's kind of where this whole prosperous human thing comes from. I don't know what it's going to end up being, to be honest with you. I just know I'm passionate about putting the word out and sharing kind of what I went through and maybe a different perspective than this hustle and grind culture that seems to be so prevalent in our industry.
Sure.
But I see so much. I see a lot of divorce and kids not having their parents and just the things that are the consequences of that. And it really bothers me. I don't think you have to do that. I think there's a both and, not an either or.
That's good. Well, it's kind of stuff is in a reaction to something sometimes. Like, for instance, I'm on LinkedIn a lot because, hiring and whatnot in our industry, we hire on LinkedIn, and it's so anti-hustle culture. It's like so anti. Sometimes I'm like, you've gotten too far. So sometimes
I would agree with that.
Versus like on Facebook, and particularly like roofing Facebook, for instance, it is like literally, I don't know if it's definitely the other direction, right? It's swung so far in the other direction where it's like people are mad at you if you're not working on Sunday. And so, and it's like, for instance, there's been a lot of posts recently about like, there's a holiday and somebody's like, if you're not working on this holiday, what are you even doing? And it's like, I need rest. I am burnt out. Like, what do you say? Like, I think that for me, if I had to summarize my thoughts on that topic, it would be like, if you're gonna quit, rest instead, right? Like, that's my suggestion. Like, don't quit, rest,
Yeah. So you're actually talking about the problem that I see, the extremes. It's either all of this and this idea of obsessiveness, or none of this and apathy, right? Like how if you're not doing that, you don't care. And so that's where people put us in these boxes, when the reality is we're trying to live somewhere closer to the middle, this sweet spot. And I don't want to talk work-life balance. I think a lot of people get confused on that. First off, I don't think it's a thing that happens except for maybe a split moment here and there. I always think of it as like a teeter-totter going like this back and forth. And every once in a while, as it's passing by, it hits it for a second, then keeps on going. So you have balance for just that long, and then it goes on because you are in three different phases in whatever you're doing. You're building, you're maintaining, or you're enjoying. When you're in building phase, you're going to be out of balance to the working. I hate the word hustle, but I love the word working well. You know who Pete Rose is? He was just in the news. He passed away, right? Are you familiar with Pete Rose? You know who he was and all that other good stuff?
He was a really great baseball player, I think, right?
Do you know his nickname?
No.
Charlie Hustle. And that was because he was always hustling. He was always going hard all the time. But what a lot of people don't, and he had the record for stolen bases for many, many years. What a lot of people don't realize, he also owns the record for most caught stealing. And so is it a good or is it a bad? I kind of look at that as like, hey, did he maybe run his team out of opportunities sometimes? And the guy that actually owns the record has the highest percentage of success. His name is Ricky Henderson. And so I look at that and like, there's a place there where there's this sweet spot of hustling or doing your work well at the right time, but not losing sight of the things that are important to you. I met your beautiful bride, B, and your wonderful daughter, and I see how much joy you have when you spend time with them. Is it worth compromising that so that you can build some big business that you think is going to be this thing that allows you to live the lifestyle you want, but you're compromising it now, which could lead to you not being able to achieve that at all together because they want some of you too.
Oh, absolutely. I think about the point of diminishing returns. For instance, on social media, let's say I think it's a good thing for my business to spend an hour a day on social media doing some things, putting out some content, whatever, interacting a little bit. But if I'm spending 3 hours a day, it's like way past the like the diminishing returns. There's like a diminishing return after a while, and it's actually kind of hostile to my brain a little bit, and it's actually turning on me a little bit. It's actually like I'm getting stressed thinking about competitors and all this other drama or whatever is going on. The only thing is, and this is that I struggle with, and I'm sure you work with other entrepreneurs that struggle with this type of thing, is there's a compulsive aspect to it, and it is a certain amount of like it's unhealthy, and like it's possibly I'm out of balance. I had 10 years where I was like working. Well, I was trying to work smart, but I was working kind of like just extra time to make up for what I felt were deficiencies in me. I felt like I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week because 70, 80, like pretty regularly for 10 years because I felt like I wasn't as good as some other people. I had to work harder to get the same result. And now I have this kind of compulsive thing, but I also have a phone addiction. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that you've ever talked to that's like that. But I try to be honest about that because there's some definite drawbacks to like even 10 years of like trying to grow a business. Really, there's really drawbacks to like trying to grow a business from 1 to 30 people in 10 years and feeling the weight of all that. Because now I have to hustle. And I think I'm probably in a similar case to a lot of the entrepreneurs that you help, where they feel like they have to work kind of compulsively because they're scared that they'll have to let people go or something if they don't try to make up for it.
There's quite a few things there to unpack in what you said. First off, let's take if I don't work hard enough and all that good stuff, I have a responsibility for these people and I might have to let people go because we're not doing as well. I would challenge that most of us are doing a lot of things we shouldn't do, and we should be delegating or enabling somebody on our team to do because they're probably better at it than we are. But our arrogance and pride kind of gets in the way sometimes. And we just don't think anybody cares enough, nor can they do it as well as we can. So we tend to own that thing. And here's my challenge is whether it's social media or going out and selling or whatever it is that you do, right? Like if you enjoy it, right, it gives you energy and it makes you money, go for it. No problem. Absolutely, you should do it. But if it doesn't make you money and it steals energy from you, you should stop doing that. No doubt about it. Because it puts you in a less productive mode. Ideally, we as human beings put ourselves in this productive mode as much as possible and not so much into things that are unproductive. The idea of me checking my email right now makes my skin crawl. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to do my calendar. I delegated all of that off to have somebody else manage it because they can take care of that task actually much better than I can, follow up much better than I can, automate things much better than I can, serve our clients and our friends and our people much better than I can so that I can do what it is that I do well. And that applies in a lot of different things. So we have to first identify what gives us energy and then what gives us money of those things that gives us energy, and then do that and do it well. But it doesn't mean do it 80 hours a week unless it's absolute joy for you. You have to ask yourself, is that joy? Am I willing to sacrifice my health, my family, my friends, and all the other stuff for that? I see a lot of, what's the right word? Mike Goldenstein would call them gurus. I would call them influencers, that they say that's what you're supposed to do. Sacrifice everything else to build this thing that you're passionate about, because it will bring you this joy in the end that is perceived that you could then live the life you want. And I just don't think that's what we're really after, because I've done it. I've done it multiple times. Achieved pretty amazing things for a guy with about a year and a half of college education, graduated, mediocre in my class. Nothing special about me other than I have an undying hunger for personal growth and leadership. I just love it. It's one of those things. I just jam on it. Without that, I
appreciate that.
Wouldn't be who I am. Like, it just isn't. I don't have to go a million miles an hour all the time.
So there's been like a lot of like kind of excitement around this new your Prosperous Human thing with the. Are you writing a book about it? Is that?
I am. That should be out next Mayish, somewhere in there. We've got the whole outline put together, publisher put together, and there's some initiative behind it, which is pretty wild. Like, I'm a little surprised.
Are you working with John Maxwell on it, or did he just help inspire it?
He helped inspire it.
Bring light to it, yeah.
There's been a couple of back and forths on it, but he's been more the inspiration of it. He was kind enough to take a little more than an hour to sit down with me at this high impact leaders deal and talk with me more about it and encourage me to go after it. Some of the folks on his team, Chad Johnson, Jeremy Foster, they're fully behind it and have been a big help in it. And then a lot of those guys that I met at the high capacity leaders deal, Justin Rothlingshofer, Tyler Dickerhoff, JC Height, like those guys are all fully supportive of me going after this, because it's a different spin on this idea of either being empty or full in something and more living in this sweet spot and being able to identify what it is, like put your finger on it.
Absolutely. Can you go through some of the basics of this? So if somebody wanted to like maybe just see if this might be something that they're interested in, what the Prosperous Human program is? Sure.
The first piece of it is the ideal of living a good life in the sweet spot. I think that's the core of the whole thing. How do we live this good life that we perceive we want to live in a place that feels more sweet spot and balance than extremes all the time? And you see it all over the place. Everything's an extreme nowadays. I mean, our country is at an extreme in division and all the other stuff. And we're not in that sweet spot we used to be. And so what I identified over about 10 years of research and study of some of the best leadership people out there, the science, the data, everything that kind of goes into what gives us fulfillment and joy in our lives and maybe even a sense of freedom and peace. These 7 things became this core aspect of it as I kept looking for things are good in my life, but there's still something missing. There's a gap. What's missing? And so the first thing for me, like I said, was the spiritual growth and development. I broke down like, hey, God back in my life after years of being away from it and starting to serve other people. But I still had other things. Like I couldn't put my finger on what was missing. Still working hard and 12 hours a day, 14 hours, 16 hours. It didn't matter, like whatever it took type of thing. And so that was the first area where I went, okay, work. Like, what is work fulfillment and joy? What does the science say about it? What does the data say about it? What do the most successful people in the world really do? And what I actually found out is they don't work as many hours as you might think they do. What they have done is they have leveraged other people who are talented in the areas where they're weak to pick up the ball and run with it on the things that need to be. And then they position themselves to do what they do great and make the decisions they need to make in a much shorter amount of time. And then they also set aside time where they work, and the work they do is very focused. You might hear the term flow thrown around every once in a while. Like, when you're in it, right? When you're in the flow, you sit down, you start putting that pen to paper, you start typing or you start talking, and it just starts to pick up steam. And then 4 or 5 hours later, you're like, wow, man, where'd the time go? That was awesome. Look at what I created or did. And they know how to position themselves to do that and at the right time for them, because everybody's a little different. It's one of the things I just boggles my mind about people that put themselves out there as thought leaders. Like, you got to get up early in the morning and get your workout in and then go to do your brain stuff for the first whatever amount of time, which does work for some people. But the reality is there's a whole bunch of other people out there that from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. is their prime time. And we all kind of know when it is, when our brains are working, when we get to work and actually do something creative and what we feel has value. And so this work fulfillment thing became very important to me. And all of this is based on what I call a litmus test. So that all comes from actually my son-in-law, funny enough. I went to go visit him and walked up to the house. He goes, "Hey, can you give me a hand?" And anytime Jared, my son-in-law, says, "Hey, can you give me a hand?" that means physical labor. I'm going to build a cupola. I'm going to put a porch up. I'm going to build a play yard for the grandkid, whatever. It's like what he usually asks me for. And this time it wasn't that. It was, "Hey, I am up for a promotion and I have to give a presentation and I'd like you to critique it. I know you do this a lot." I said, "Awesome, man. That sounds like it's a lot less strenuous." And I said, "What's it about?" And he goes, "pH." And it clicked to me the second he said it, like Prosperous Human. I've been working on this whole thing. He says pH. And I said, like the value of water, its acidity and alkalinity. And he's like, "Yeah, exactly." I said, "Could you pick another more boring subject?" And he's like, "I can do it on anything I want. It's the thing I know most about, and I have to show that I can teach something to get this promotion." I went, "Sweet, I'm in." So he starts talking and walking his way through it. And there was a really critical point that there's this scale that you measure pH on from 0 to 14. And you would think perfect balance is at 0. It's not. It's actually at 7. I went, "Oh, now I'm listening." PH7 is actually truly balanced or neutral. And then anything to the right of that going up to 14 is acidic. And anything going down from that is caustic. Acidity eats away. Caustic has buildup. And if you think about it, when we're obsessive with our work, that's kind of acidic. It eats away at us, and it eats away at our relationships and the people around us. Where if we're apathetic towards our work, we don't care as much, we get this buildup and resentment towards it. So this really struck home with a lot of the people that have heard this concept. And I'm just talking about work fulfillment right now. But as you go through each of the others, time prioritization and financial freedom. If you don't know how to prioritize your time, your chances of achieving financial freedom are severely compromised. We get to the hustle culture thing where we're working a million hours because our knowledge, understanding, and wisdom is lacking to be able to build something that's scalable. And so if we understand how to prioritize our time and do what we do well with energy and money as the two criteria to kind of look at, you start to realize that a bit of the acidic side of that is greed. You're greedy with your time because you're greedy with your money, not willing to risk anything, not willing to put anything in. And so you get acidic towards it. And then you also have resentment over here as well. This idea that everybody's taking my time and I'm not able to do what I want to do because I have to do all this work for everybody else. You start resenting what it is that you're doing. So those are two. I'll name off the others and we can get into more of it if you want to, but
let's go through them kind of quick. I just want to make sure that people have some idea of what you'd be covering if they joined this.
Yeah. So we have work fulfillment, time prioritization, and financial freedom. You have relationships and community. So think of that as like your family, your friends, the community that you are a part of, physical well-being and performance. Those are ones that get compromised early and often whenever we decide that we're going to be Johnny Hustle all the time. Like, hey, and I've noticed from you, by the way, well done. I've noticed you've been doing some workouts, getting in shape, cold plunges, that kind of stuff. High fives on that.
Doesn't fix the double chin I've got here, but I have been working out quite a bit. I work out with a trainer, and I'm very grateful for that person. I think the big thing now is the food. I got to fix the. He's just having me focus on protein right now, but I'm pretty motivated. I got called out by one Lee Haight in the Beacon booth. He made me. He had me take out my shirt so I could get the post-fight interview, and he was basically like, "Hey, brother, you got to get this right." And it was both embarrassing, but it was pretty motivating. So I'm not gonna lie, like I'm kind of grateful that happened because it did make me think like. So it's been ever since then, and so by this next IRE, I'm pretty motivated. So if somebody comes up to me and makes me take my shirt off in the Beacon booth again, that I will be svelte.
So Rilla allows you to listen to it's an AI in your pocket, listens to the appointment. It's pretty crazy what it can do. It gives a script, it gives everything they said, it breaks down some statistics for you.
Analyze talk ratio, interactivity, like how you and I are interacting back and forth, longest modeling, like all those things.
Honestly, this is the shit that I most believe in AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Enhancing the
You're
user
about to put
experience.
math and data around something that used to be my magic skill.
Good, man. Hey, we all need our motivations. We all need our drivers, this incentive. And we're going to talk about that a little bit about desire before I get done. Finish these up real quick. So that was, again, work fulfillment, time prioritization and financial freedom, your physical well-being and performance, spiritual growth and development, leadership and influential impact. Right, it's actually one of those things that we have a hunger for that I didn't realize. Like it was one of the last ones that I kind of got figured out. Then we have mental capability and strength, or mental strength and capability. You can do it either way. And then finally, I think that's 7, right? Did I get 7? Am I missing one?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I got 7.
My
Okay,
question for you, Jim, is how long did it take you to memorize all those?
Well, I've been doing it for a long time, so it's kind of one of those things that now that I've done it for as long as I have, it's funny because it came up while we were there. In this high capacity thing, leaders thing, while we're at Maxwell, we're all sitting in this circle and we're sharing these things that we deal with when we get into these positions that we are as we become more experienced in business and life. Especially as coaches, or a lot of these guys are pastors and things like that, we start to feel very alone. We don't have the close relationships that we might have had in the past because people tend to want something from us all the time. Like any interaction tends to be, hey, can I get you to do this or do that? Can you explain this to me? How can I do this? All that kind of stuff. And not just a regular conversation between a couple of guys on the back porch, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were going around the circle, and I shared that. Like that was one of the things I was struggling with, was this community and relationship. While me and my wife get along great, we're best friends, she's awesome. Things outside of that, and I have a lot of acquaintances, a lot of people I care for and love very much in this industry, but not somebody I can just hang out on the back porch with. Like, come on over, hang out, have a beer, and have a good conversation about life, and not about it. It always goes back to contracting and how do I make more money in most of the circumstances. And I would rather talk about, hey, how's your wife? How's your kid? What are you enjoying about that? I'd love to talk to you about your struggle with the diet thing. Like, I'm going to send you a book, as a matter of fact, as soon as we get done. It's called Power of Ownership by a good friend of mine, Justin Rothingsoffer. I enjoy those things, bring me value, right? And I can bring value to other people. It's when there's no exchange of value that you start to feel alone. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so sharing that, one of the guys there actually raised his hand and said, I'll be your friend. And we've been meeting pretty much every Friday ever since for about half an hour online on Zoom. He grabs a coffee, I grab a coffee, and we're both on the back porch. And
can I show you something right now? My wish list for Amazon or Audible. Look at what's number one on my wish list.
The Power of Ownership?
No joke, dude.
That's awesome. Well, the wish is already my command. It'll be on its way to you.
That's so funny that you just said that, because I literally have that as my number one thing on my wish list. That's so funny to me. I love that. That's cool that that's a friend of yours, Justin.
Yeah, he's the guy I meet with every Friday.
That's amazing. Oh my God, that's so awesome. I'm so excited about that. Thank you.
He's an absolute rock star. He's a doctor in the field, and he actually has worked with the NHL, the Detroit Lions, but he saw this deficiency in us as entrepreneurs. And I know, Detroit Lions, I don't know if I like him anymore.
No. I'm just saying, how uncanny is that? Isn't that feel like serendipitous or something like that?
I think that's one of those little, hey, God poking at us type things.
That does feel like that, right? That does feel like it's beautiful. Oh God, I love that. Beautiful.
So this idea of either empty or full isn't really where we're at. Where's the sweet spot between too much and too little? What do I need to either add to my life or remove from my life to get to that sweet spot? And so we actually put together a little workbook for this thing so that people can go through and ask themselves on each and every one of these, am I more over here or over there? And I run a pretty awesome mastermind group. These guys are all 20 million bucks and above. And we did this at our retreat, and we sent them off in breakouts. It was awesome. It was awesome, the insight and the takeaways that they had when they came back. I think you work with one of those folks that actually came back and talked to you about that, which is why we're probably having this conversation today. And it was really like, hey, this thing is real. This isn't, I always thought it was just for me. Really truthfully. And now I see it wasn't. It was just something I had to go through and get really, really deep into so that I know it so well, I can teach it pretty well. You said how long did it take you to memorize?
Did you guys do that?
We did the retreat in August, early August, first weekend.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Josh has been encouraging me to be more, it's interesting. He's been working on himself, the beauty of sometimes if you do have a successful business, and then sometimes it allows you to have more moments to really think about it, how do I want my life to be better besides money? Because money's great. And sometimes it's getting to that spot where then you can kind of focus on some other stuff. And ideally you don't have to completely sacrifice all that other stuff to get to the money. But then sometimes people get to the money and then they have a little bit more time to think about what they really want. And they're like, I would like my life to be better in other ways besides just money.
Once you get to know us, there's no reason to buy from anybody else. What we do differently is we do stake in the factory. You're truly buying direct. We don't sell to distribution. We sell to roofers, the people that have been getting hurt for years. You keep getting price increases from suppliers. We do price decreases. We've had about 4 price decreases this year. VanBoxwellBuilding.com. We have a new website, the Amazon type platform. You go right on there, click it, put it in your cart. We can send it to you, or feel free to give us a call. We'll answer any questions for you.
So Josh has been kind of working with me, almost recommending that he's recommended I take a day off during the week, which is kind of a wild move. I'm trying not to get too soft, but I have been taking Thursdays off. And part of that is because I do work on the weekends sometimes, and it's more with Thursdays off, I do 40 hours kind of thing. But it's weird to have a client recommend that. And I'm grateful for it. It was a pretty big deal. I probably shared this on the podcast before, but it was a pretty big deal this last 2 months ago. I was off on Thursday when my mom passed, but I was the only one. I was the only one with her when that happened. And it was a pretty big deal that I was there for that moment. So
first off, that's the first I've heard of that. I'm sorry to hear that, and that you're going through that, and the family's going through that. Big hugs around you, brother.
Thank you.
It's a difficult thing to go through.
And I'm still grieving, but I've processed some of the initial shock and all that, obviously. But I'm just grateful for that for having like this emphasis on living life and not just work. And I think you're right. It can't be one or the other. Like it can't be swung wildly in either direction. I love this idea of the pH thing. The pH thing, when did you get that naming idea? Because that's such a good metaphor, I think.
Well, I had been calling it Prosperous Human kind of from the beginning. Like I wanted to be what true prosperity was, not this fake prosperity that we see. I actually am like going out there and using the word prosperity on purpose because I think it's gotten a little bit of a bad rap from either prosperity gospel or this idea of wealth and ego, pride, power, and money, when the idea really is a way to live life, which is to do right by others, but also do right by yourself. That's okay. And not to live in this extreme side of things all the time, because again, that either puts you into anxiety or absolute boredom. Again, these big pendulum swings where we're trying to live in this place where we go, man, I feel pretty good about things. Yeah, I got stuff to do. And yeah, there's a little bit of anxiousness or even maybe a little bit of apathy, but it's not so much that you start to have those dark thoughts, self-doubt, stuff like that when things get quiet around you. I think that's the place that I'm trying to help the most is when you get quiet, and where most people do it today is hopefully when they go to sleep. Like that's the first time their brain is shut down all day from taking in information. And all of a sudden that brain fires up again and it starts talking to us, and it starts talking usually negatively. I don't have that anymore. I feel like I live in the sweet spot. I am in this place where I'm taking care of myself as a human being, both physically and mentally. I'm serving others, which I find highly valuable, but I'm finding value from others too. So I'm getting a two-way street there. It's just, I'm really joyful, not necessarily happy. I don't think happy is the goal. I don't think that's what we're after. I think we're after a place of finding a bit of joy and peace in what we do and being okay with it. You do some pretty amazing things, Tim. The other day I sat there and I'm like, who do I want to have influence in my circle of people when it comes to marketing? And there's really 3 of you out there. You, JC Height, and Joseph Hughes. I have a lot of respect for you guys. I think you actually care about what you do. I think you actually try to do right by the customers that you serve. And as long as you're there, we're in alignment. And so I think that's a really good place to be. I do always wonder, because I'm not in as tight of relationship with you as I might be with others out there, and Joseph or JC as well. Like, where are we in those other 6 areas? Like work fulfillment, maybe that's pretty good. But where are we in the physical well-being and performance? How much time are you getting to think and actually use your brain and enjoying the creativity of what you do? How much time are you spending with your family and your friends and those that you love? Because guess what? When that moment goes by, it's gone. You don't ever get it back. And I don't want anybody sitting there on their deathbed going, man, I really regret that.
Yeah, this weekend I ran a 10K with my wife, and I made some pumpkin muffins, mini muffins with my daughter, and basically one of those really good weekends, like the fall hits, you start to get some of those like, God, it feels good. I love the fall. And you're right. It's just to savor those moments and to not be distracted, because certainly I still have that tug of the workaholism. I got a bit of the workaholism at the moment. But it's important to certainly to remember to anchor ourselves and appreciate that. Where can people check this out if they wanted to look more into this?
You can actually go to prosperoushuman.com. We got a website up now. The intention is just to get the workbook out for free and maybe get the newsletter. I do put a newsletter out each week as we dig into each one of these. And there's a new podcast out called Prosperous Human, where I'm going out there and I'm interviewing the people that I see that live in a prosperous place. This true prosperity where they've they've kind of learned, like, hey, I chased that thing all my life, and that didn't give me what I thought it was going to give me. And now I've found this, and in one of those 7 components. Justin will be on there. I actually interviewed Tyler Dickerhoof as well. We're efforting to get Jeremy Foster on here. He's got an amazing story about community and relationship. And we want to just dig into more of that. We keep getting these, people that I didn't think I'd ever get to interview that are wanting to be on it. So it's pretty cool.
Super cool. That's super cool, man. What a great pursuit. And I think that I'm in pursuit if I'm not a prosperous human. I care very much about these topics. And I'm trying to get into them more. And I think I wish more people were motivated in this area. But like I said, sometimes like you get some money and you can kind of feel, okay, that's not going to do it. That's not going to check the box totally. Sometimes it's like people get alerted to this once they start to have some money. They realize that they need to go deeper.
Yeah. And I think they should have done it before, because when you don't understand what you truly desire. And so you start chasing things that you think you desire because the rest of the world told you to. And you're a mimic or a follower or a parrot is really the way to look at that. You really need to have some self-introspection on what do I really desire out of life. And most of us are desiring of the things because we think it helps us live this life that we perceive to be, when we can actually live the life now.
Great reminder. And thank you so much for being on.
Last little piece on that. Think about that for just a second. I want to really drive this home.
Yeah.
If you decided that your lifestyle was more important than the achievement and the money, okay, how much different would you think about the way you do work to fit the lifestyle that you want? And that's what the radical change was for me. I decided that I wasn't going to sacrifice all of these things. I would sacrifice a little, but not all, right? So that I was deficient or on the negative side of things. And I would then have to think differently about, how do I still be successful? How do I still accomplish the things I want to accomplish? And so I started to learn about leveraging my time, getting the right people in the right place, and truly being an owner and a leader of my business instead of working in it every day. And it's been fantastic. I want to help other people. Like, you can be successful without working an insane amount of hours every week, but you should work as much as you want to and as much as you enjoy doing the things you enjoy. I think it's a both and that you can actually see out there. But you start to think completely differently, that I am not going to sacrifice the soccer games with my daughter, but I'm still going to achieve this thing. You solve problems differently.
Yeah, and I love talking to people when they're, it's just a good reminder that sometimes I talked to a guy who sold his company at 50 million, but it ended up going to 700, 800. And it's a HVAC, plumbing, electrical company, but the guy said he never missed his kid's basketball game whenever he was in town, and essentially like he was always at every single one of them, and how big of a deal that was for him and his family. And it's cool that he was gloating about that. You know what I mean? I had to pry the number out of him. He didn't want to tell me.
How much is enough?
Yeah. So, huge reminders today, and certainly a challenge. I think some of the best ones of these podcasts are kind of challenge. It's a challenge to you. And I have to have guys like you on to challenge me too, Jim. So thank you very, very much for being on.
Hey, no problem at all, man. My pleasure. Anytime you want to have a conversation, I'm more than willing to, whether it's here on a podcast or on a private phone call.
All right. Absolutely, man. I do really appreciate that offer. Thank you. And the podcast is put on by hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social media. And Jim, could you give that URL one more time for somebody that wanted to check that out?
ProsperousHuman.com, or go check out our podcast, Prosperous Human. It's on all the outlets out there. So you should be able to find it YouTube if you want to actually see my ugly mug. but I tend to have a face made for radio, so you might want to listen to the podcast.
Appreciate you, man. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yep. Thanks.